Joining us now, the voice of the Baylor Bears, good friend, and got to be a happy camper. I mean, the Bears are 4-0 and have doubled their win total from a year ago. And I got to think, was it Larry Fedora? Was he just bad luck, John?
I'm not saying
we,
that at all. I
I
love
know
Larry
you're not.
Fedora.
I do too. Larry's a good friend. So,
Yeah, same
uh,
here.
or maybe our former offensive lineman that's now back here, Zach Crabtree. I keep telling him at practice, Crab, you were holding the Bears back. You left Waco, came back here, and things are great here. Your chemistry here in Stillwater's great. It must have been, and he laughs. He tells some good stories though about um, Joe Wickline, who was also in that group
Right.
of coaches last year, and he said even after Wickline was dismissed, Crabtree was still working there. And he said he would call at the office, say, "What are you doing? Why don't you meet me for early lunch or something?" He goes, "No, I'm working, man. I'm actually still got a job. What are
That's
you
funny.
doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm drinking coffee out here on my land, just enjoying life." Um, Bears are enjoying life. Or how surprised are you by this, or are you not, John?
I would say I expected Baylor to be improved this year, improved off last year, just because, last year was so crazy with all the, COVID protocols and everything. Coach Aranda's first year here at Baylor and his first year as the head coach, and he had to, maneuver all of that stuff. And so just having a more quote unquote normal year, I really thought Baylor would be better. They had a normal spring and summer and fall camp and get into the season. So I thought we'd be better. I can't tell you how much better I thought we'd be. I mean, I thought this was a bowl team this year. So, they've really outperformed, I guess, what I expected so far. And the tests keep coming. There's another big test coming on Saturday in Stillwater.
Outside of normalcy, because I can look at
Yeah.
some of the guys that have come in the transfer portal. You can look at some of the coaching changes. Not making fun of it, but obviously Jeff Grimes has been a fit. I know this when I turn on the video, I see a lot of plays I'm familiar with because outside zone has become a staple in Stillwater, and now we're seeing you guys run an outside zone every conceivable way it can be run. Um, but you got Grimes, some changes in the coaching staff, selection at quarterback, and Bohannon. What do you think? What do you point to and say? Well, that's made a big difference.
Well, that would be number one. Just the new offense and Jeff Grimes being here, and Eric Mateos came with him from BYU as the offensive line coach. That would be the biggest thing, but not the only thing. I think another year in Ron Roberts' defense has helped these guys, and this is a defense with 10 starters back. So just the continuity there and the returning starters, I think the defense is playing really, really well also. So all those things fit together, and I think just another level of comfort in the second year under Dave Aranda. I think that is a big factor also. Robert, I think there's always, when there's a coaching change, I think there's always a transition year that pretty much every program goes through. And I think we have done that here. Matt Rule's first year, we were 1-11. Dave Aranda's first year, we were 2-7. I just think you're gonna, if you build it, if you have the right guys, and you recruit well, then you're definitely going to be better moving forward past that first year.
Yeah, and the one starter on defense that didn't return, Siaki Apu,
Hmm.
no, what is it?
Yeah.
I
Ika.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm going to work on that. I'll have that down by Saturday. From what I understand, I think he's related to one of our defensive tackles,
Oh,
Samuele
really?
Tuihalamaka. Yeah, I think they're
Ah,
like
interesting.
cousins. Of course, I've had a lot of those. We've had a lot of Polynesian players come through here. I love the guys.
Yeah.
They stand for family. They're intensely loyal. They do have that kind of that warrior uh, mentality that makes the mentality that really helps them be good football players. I'm not trying to stereotype anybody, but They tell you that. I mean, and we've seen the success in pockets in Texas, especially there in Euless Trinity is,
Yeah, right.
American Airlines moved a lot of folks from American Samoa and Tongans in there to work for American Airlines in that area, and we've seen what that's done at Euless Trinity. Um, and I knew when he transferred from LSU, and I mean 6'4", 350 pounds. That's a guy I would like in the center of my defense.
Yeah. Well, he's a space heater, isn't he? And he takes up, he occupies a couple of blockers pretty much every play. And so he stepped in at that nose tackle position. And his numbers, if you look at it, they may not be
Not
that
great.
impressive.
No,
Not great, no.
no.
But if you watch him, you'll just see the impact that he makes because he really does occupy a couple of blockers every
Yep.
play. He tipped a pass last week. We had an interception of Brock Purdy. Garmin Randolph got the interception, but it was tipped by Ika in the defensive front. So I think he's getting more and more comfortable in there, and I think he'll be more and more of an impact as the games come on.
All right. As we look at this, the other thing too that you can't deny. In fact, I think it was, and I heard Dave Aranda's press conference. He talked about the hidden yardage, the
Mm-hmm.
kickoff return, the punt return, and what Baylor's doing in special teams is a difference maker. It was a difference maker against Iowa State.
It was the difference. I mean, Baylor doesn't win that game without those hidden yards. And, that's just such a huge play when Treston Ebner returns a kickoff 98 yards for a score. And then he had a punt return late that was big, 41-yard punt return to the 16-yard line that set up the final points, really. So the difference in the game was that field goal there in the fourth quarter. And then, don't discount our kicker, Isaac Power, who had a 54.5-yard average on the day. No returns at all against him. And then our kickoff guy, Noah Rauschenberg, kicked it out of the end zone every down. So all those things, and we blocked the punt, partially blocked the punt too. So special teams were really, really big against Iowa State.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that's something Mike Gundy's been really wanting is one of those kickers that your guys just run a sprint every kickoff because
Yeah.
they don't have to make the tackle. It's going out the back of the end zone. So that is certainly a something coaches enjoy having. It takes a little bit of the pressure off when there's kickoffs. When you look at this game and the matchup on Saturday, and I do want to ask you this because I texted you this the other day.
Yep.
What's Bryce Petty doing?
He is in Dallas. He is, I think, in the financial world. I don't know exactly, I don't know exactly what he's doing, but I think he's doing very well for himself. And he's in the Metroplex. And it's funny how his name comes up when it's Baylor and Oklahoma State week. Right.
well, they had him on Sirius.
I heard
That's
that.
what
Yeah.
I was listening to, and he was the one that said, he goes, yeah, Baylor, the coaching staff's they're using this CS consultants or whatever, and they on Thursdays the coaching staff zooms with the consultants at this football analytics firm, and they give them all kinds of scenarios for late in the game, scenarios during the game based on weather, injuries that they know about, and so forth. And I heard that, I'm like, okay, I want to find out more about that because I don't know what Hunziker. I did it a couple of years ago. Now Dave's doing it now. We're into PFF College, and we pull a lot of info off Pro Football Focus College.
Right.
So when I heard this analytic firm is giving scenarios to coaches to have, I'm like, I got to know more about that. Did you hear anything about that?
No, and you asked me about it, and I haven't got you an answer yet. But Coach Aranda is coming to my office at 11 o'clock this morning, so I will ask him and see what he tells me about that. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it did to me too. And I mean,
yeah.
And Bryce Petty, I figure Bryce Petty knows what he's talking about. I mean, he's been around this a little bit.
Sure.
All right, but as you look at this matchup, what do you see as being, for Baylor to come out on top? What are they? I mean, other than just the normal, don't turn the ball over. I know Baylor would love to cut down on penalties, just like Oklahoma State would love to cut down on penalties. But who needs to have a big game? What phase of the Baylor football team needs to really excel Saturday night in Stillwater?
Well, obviously, and you listened to Coach Aranda's or watched Coach Aranda's press conference from
I did.
Monday, and the first thing he talks about is Jim Knowles' defense, and it's like, to me, it's
Called him a
like
good dude.
a
Called
good
him a
dude.
good. I
Hey,
told
that's
Jim
high
that
praise.
yesterday. Yeah,
That's high praise.
I said, Jim, Dave Aranda called you a good dude.
We should all be called good dudes. But it's like, it's like an artist or a musician who appreciates another artist or another musician. That's what I got from that he really appreciates what Jim Knowles is doing with the defense there, and that was the first thing he talked about. So, that is the first thing. This offense for Baylor is obviously and definitely better than it was a year ago. Remember last year, Baylor averaged 90.3 yards per game rushing, 2.7 yards per rush, and so far this year, it's like I don't know exactly 250 yards per game rushing, something like that. And top two rushers are over 7 yards per carry. So, this wide zone offense is working very, very well, and it's much better, much more productive than it was a year ago. But again, another stern test. That was a test against Iowa State. This will be a test against Oklahoma State. So just to see if Baylor can establish what they want to do with that ground game and everything, everything in this offense is built around the ground game and the offensive line. And then Gary Bohannon to have another test against another really good defense. He's done well so far, but he's only started 4 games in his Baylor career. Still hasn't thrown an interception. He had 1 fumble. That was his first turnover against Iowa State, first turnover all year. So, he's got to be able to handle the pressure again and do it on the road. The Iowa State game was here at home. This game is in Stillwater in a tough, tough atmosphere. So he's got to be able to handle that. And you mentioned penalties, and it's pretty amazing that Baylor could beat a good team like Iowa State committing that many penalties. So they've got to cut down on that. And then the turnover thing is pretty obvious also.
All right, I'm going to give you a big question here at the end that
All
probably
right.
I should have asked at the beginning. You and I haven't really even talked much about it, but I tell you what, Matt Walters and Wyatt Thompson, I was getting a lot of calls from them from the
Uh-huh.
time OU and Texas announced their little business venture going to the SEC. Um, your thoughts on what the Big 12 has done, your thoughts on where they are, and your thoughts on how happy Baylor may be with this situation, and maybe how excited Baylor fans are looking forward to Texas visiting later this month or next month.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope our fans, really welcome them appropriately, and we get Texas and Oklahoma in Waco this year. So I hope our fans are here and support the Bears to the fullest. I hate it, number one. We've had a standing rivalry with Texas going back to the 1900s, early 1900s, and in every sport, we've played them every year since then. So I hate to think about that not happening. And then Oklahoma has been more recent, but certainly in the history of the Big 12, we've had some great games and great moments against Oklahoma. So I hate that they are leaving, but they've made that decision to leave. And I think that folks who make the decisions of adding those 4 schools did a really good job. I think they did the best that they could possibly do in finding 4 schools to come in. And so I'm looking forward to it. I prefer to look at it as looking forward and looking at it positively, and can't wait till we have BYU and Houston and UCF and Cincinnati in the Big 12.
Yeah, and you get BYU at home here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's going to be a preview, a Big 12 preview,
Yeah.
October 16th. They play here in Waco. Will that count in the conference standings?
You know what? Don't be careful what you wish for. They're pretty good.
Oh, I know they are. Exactly.
Yeah,
No,
be
I'm
careful.
not saying that at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, be careful about wanting to count them yet. Although I give at home, I give Baylor a great chance to beat the BYU Cougars, but yeah, I've been impressed. I've watched
Oh,
several
they're
of their,
good.
had a
Yeah.
chance to watch several of their games this year. Their play-by-play guy came on with me the day it was announced, and he's a great guy. He seems
Yeah.
to be a great guy. So, well, hey, look forward to seeing you on Saturday, folks. He's a good dude, John Morris, the voice of the Baylor Bears.
That's the best,
Hey,
nicest thing you could say about me. I appreciate that.
well, I've always thought you were a good dude. And again, uh, give me whatever Coach Aranda shares with you on that analytics group with scenarios. I'm always interested in that. I'm kind of a football nerd, so I
Gotcha.
like that kind of stuff. Hey, John, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Robert. Always enjoy it, and I'll see you Saturday.
All right, John Morris again, voice of the Baylor Bears. We'll take a time.